I'm not going to say much by way of introduction for a couple reasons. Some part of it because they're going to say a few things about themselves in a minute, and partly because many of you already know Dan and Selena and Elisha, and yeah, it's great to have them back. They've been, for those of you who don't know, I'll let you clap. Go ahead, you can clap. It's that awkward, I keep trying to talking, they're trying to clap. This just reminded me of something totally random. Sorry, slightly ADD, but we are going to record the Vision Day. Even though it's not live streamed, we are recording it. So for people who do want to work in the kids' work, there will be a recording you can watch/listen to. So someone asked me about that during the break, and I forgot to mention that. So, all right, back to Dan and Selena. So they've been part of the church for a while here at Living Light, which they'll tell you about. But for the last 2 years, they've been in Germany at the church that relates to us in Herten, that Philip and Hannah planted and continues to grow. And so with them now coming back a few weeks ago to spend the next season of their life, however long that is, with us here before moving on to what God has for them next, we thought it'd be really great for them to be reintroduced to the church, for those of you that don't know them, and for those of us who do know them as well, to be reintroduced to them, and just to hear about the church in Germany, hear about their time there, to be updated on all of that. So they graciously said that they would do it, and it was great. I heard the first one this morning. It's exciting to hear what's going on, a lot of great things that they're sharing. So definitely open up your hearts and minds, not just to hear about them and what's happening, but for God to challenge you and me, each of us, on how we should be living before Him. So, Dan and Selena.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. It is really great to be here with you this morning. I am Dan, and this is Selena, and this is our son Elisha. I'm sorry, just something feels a little bit off this morning. Just a second. Good morning, everyone.
Guten Morgen alle zusammen.
It is so good to be here with you this morning.
Es ist so gut, hier mit euch alle zu sein heute Morgen.
I haven't spoken on a Sunday without a translator for a long time.
Ich habe nicht an einem Sonntag gesprochen ohne einen Übersetzer für eine lange Zeit.
So this feels right.
Also das fühlt ja richtig an.
But I think this might take a little bit too long. What do you think?
Ja.
Okay. Okay. Well, you can go ahead and go sit down. Give the mic to Marion.
Tschüss.
We had to show how much German our son learned while we were there, so yeah.
That was spontaneous. He didn't have to look that up.
Yeah, he as a sponge. It's amazing. So first, before we get started, I forgot to do this in the first meeting, but we wanted to bring greetings from the church in Germany. Specifically, I know Stefan and Daria Friedemann came with their girls, Nellie and Yulia, last winter, and they met a lot of you, and they wanted to say hi. Philip and Hannah, Shauna Mall, and then Nadrowski, just everybody sends their greetings. So we're back from Germany, and we were in the land of beer and sausage, as you might be able to tell, but I don't actually even like beer, and I didn't eat that much sausage, so I don't have that great of an excuse. But anyway, we're back. But a lot of you we don't know very well. It seems like there's several new people since we've been gone, so we just wanted to give a very brief background from ourselves and just the church in Germany. So Selena, my beautiful wife, grew up in Memphis, was part of a related church there, moved here in the year 2000 to do the very first evangelism team, which was an evangelism program the church did many years ago. Fell in love with the church, decided to stay. I moved here in 2003 to do the School of Worship. Fell in love with the church, decided to stay. We met and she fell in love with me, so we got married. In 2006, we had our son, Elisha, in 2010. And because we love programs so much, we did the School of Leadership in 2015 with 5 other couples. That's just a little snapshot of us. We also want to give a brief snapshot of the church in Germany. So in 2009, Philip and Hannah Koch were feeling stirred in worship, and he did Google searches and found the School of Worship here. So Philip and Hannah came here in 2009 without any kids because they didn't have any at that point. But they did the School of Worship. And while here, we're just envisioned with New Testament church. We're envisioned by things of the Spirit. And going back to Germany, it was their desire to bring these things that God had given them revelation on just back to their local church. So they were trying to do that for several years. They were trying to work into their church there, and just there was a lot of resistance. So John Lauji and Philip were talking a lot, talking about things. And in 2014, they decided to just start meeting with a small group of people, and they went through the Vision and Commitment course. And through that, several people got filled with the Holy Spirit and were envisioned with just New Testament church, and were out working these things in a different way. So early 2015, Living Light Deutschland was born. So later in that year, in 2015, I said earlier that we did the School of Leadership. Another couple who are part of the church, Christian and Irina Nadrovsky, came with their 3 kids and were also on the School of Leadership that year. And so over those 9 months, we just developed a really great friendship, a really great relationship with these guys. And we knew that it was going to last longer than just those 9 months. So in spring of 2017, we decided to go visit them. So just while there, we met several people, met a lot of people in the church. We just felt God stirring us for the church and began to birth just a love for people there. We had time just with home group leaders and just different people, and it was really great. And I don't have time to go into everything, but over many years, God has spoken to Selena and I quite a bit about being different places at different times and being in other countries and working into other churches. And so we came home from that trip, just wondering, God, are you doing something here? Are you wanting us to spend some time in Germany? So we were praying about that, seeking God, and then we decided to go back in the spring of 2018, just the next year, with a view of God speaking to us. We just really felt confident that by the time we came home, that we would know if we were supposed to spend some time there. And it became pretty evident pretty quickly that God was just stirring our hearts, that we were supposed to come and we were supposed to spend some time there. So we talked to Philip and Hannah, we talked to Chris and Irina, who were all very excited of the prospect of us coming. We came back and we talked to John and Kim, and they were excited about the prospect of us going. Hopefully not to just get rid of us, but so we decided, 3 months later, we packed up 6 suitcases and we moved to Germany. And we had no visa at that point, and we had no legal way to stay beyond the 90 days that a visitor can stay. But I don't have time to get into it, but God worked all of that out.
Yes. That's a whole different story. So I'm going to give you just kind of a picture of what things looked like on the ground when we got there. The church was, there they are, was about 30 to 35 committed adults. And and over 20 kids. So the kids were very prolific. Us with our 1 kid was definitely in the minority. And we only knew a couple of families in the church very well. Even though we'd visited a lot of time, we just had met people briefly. And then, but the church was so amazingly, extraordinarily generous and welcoming us there. We got an apartment, and the church provided almost every single thing that we needed before we even got there, before they even knew us, really. So everything from our kitchen, because in Germany, in apartments, you don't have a kitchen that's already there. You have to install it.
It's just an empty room.
Yes. Someone's excited about installing. And so they installed a kitchen for us, and everything from that to like bath towels, so everything in between, the big things to the little things, they provided for us. When we got there, kind of what a Sunday morning looked like was Philip was speaking every Sunday, while Sean and Malin, we have a picture of Sean and Malin. There they are for those that know. Oh, Jackie told me what year they did the school. What did she say?
2012.
2012, maybe they did the school of worship. And
he's American, she's German.
Yes. And
some of you know them.
yes, a lot of you will know them. And then they were leading worship every single week except for 1 week a month. Philip would lead worship, and then Sean would preach 1 week. So they were very intensive on Sunday mornings. Philip and Christian would split up leading the meeting. There were 2 home groups at the time. One, Sean and Malin led, and the other one, Christian and Arena led. And also when we got there, Malin was pregnant, and Hannah, Philip's wife, was also pregnant. So right away, with these couples that were so involved in the life of the church, we knew right away that there was going to be a lot to be able to do, to just jump in and help carry some of the responsibility that was falling on these guys. And obviously with babies coming, it's a, intense time in your life. So what happened was Dan took over leading worship, or heading up the worship teams, I should say, and with a view to developing worship teams that weren't really in place at the time. So there's some of those guys. And so he gathered all the musicians, all the singers, and started meeting with them weekly just to work on worship teams to help develop spiritually and technically, to lead well, and started leading worship. He was playing or leading worship every single week, almost the whole time we were there, until coronavirus hit. I think actually once, and Dan would preach sometimes as well. Sorry, I'm adding something. And also the very first time that Philip had a week off on a Sunday for all the years, unless he was out of town, was after we got there, because Dan was able to carry some of that. We also wanted to get to know everybody, and just be able to be impacting into their lives. And so we started making plans with everybody to get together. Everybody that could speak English well enough for us to sit and have a conversation, and which is almost everybody. Everybody speaks fluent English. There's like 3 people that aren't fluent, but they do very well.
Better than I do in German.
Better than we will ever do in German, for sure. So what happened was people had us into their homes. They had us over for meals. They have kind of 3 o'clock is the time of day where you have coffee and cake, which is a great idea. We should really implement that. That's where my extra weight came from, was cake time. It was amazing. So we would have play dates for Elisha with the kids, and it was amazing to see how play for them cut through language barriers, because Elisha didn't speak the German that he speaks now. Those first 6 months was a trial, and but they just were able to run off, and they were gone and playing, and it was great, and no issues with that. So it took us about 3 months to actually get around to everybody in the church, because we are quite spontaneous planners, and we're free today if anyone wants to go out to lunch. But people are more scheduled, more organized, a little bit further ahead than we usually are. So we adapted to that. So it took us 3 months to get to everybody, because we had to plan weeks out.
It did take a little bit of adjustment. We'd say, hey, let's get together. Okay, well, we can get together in 2 months from now. Oh.
That wasn't everybody.
Okay.
No.
It was just different.
Yeah, it was different. So they're all listening. Don't be critical.
It
was good.
We love you
it.
guys.
It helped us be more like that. But as we were getting together with people, we just got to hear their stories, hear their stories of how they became born again, of God intervening in their lives, of them being filled with the Holy Spirit, of how they became part of the church, of Living Light there. And in addition to people having us in their homes, they just completely opened up their hearts to us, and just let us in every way. They let us encourage them in things we saw in them that were amazing, and speak into areas that we knew they could grow through and conquer. And we just quickly felt a part of things, and found that our not speaking German was not a big hindrance for us there, which was amazing and what we hoped would be the case.
Yeah.
The month after we arrived, Hannah and Philip had a son named Mattis. Shortly after he was born, it became apparent he wasn't hitting benchmarks and wasn't developing at the usual rate. So he was finally diagnosed with a rare chromosome deletion. And some of what that means for him, I can't explain all the medical implications of it, but for him, what that means is he has difficulty eating. He doesn't sleep well, which means it's really hard to get him to go to sleep, and then he doesn't sleep for long periods, which as a parent, you can imagine the difficulty of that. And just has poor muscle control. So even though he's 2, he's still quite like a newborn in some ways in terms of his ability to always hold his head up and his body up. So obviously these things had a big impact on their family.
Yeah, and at the same time, Malin was pregnant, as Selena mentioned earlier. And through some testing, it was discovered that the baby just had a lot of complications. There were heart complications and stomach complications. In November of that year, of 2018, Malin went on bed rest. And so she, who had been leading worship so much and so involved in so many things, was just kind of out, was unable to be involved in the church from that point. And Olivia was born on December 15th, 2018. And as I said, there were just lots of physical complications. She immediately started having surgeries and everything. And basically, Sean and Malin were living at the hospital. So this couple who's so integral to the life of the church are just completely out of everything for a period of time. And it was at this point where we just really realized the timing of God and our being able to go and just our being able to help. Because we know that with them being out, so much would have piled on Philip. So just as Selena said, I was able to help just raise up worship leaders and people who could carry some of that. And I was able to speak some and just release some of the burden from Philip. So there is actually a lot to say about this time and about Olivia, but we just feel like it's not really our story to tell. And I know that Sean and Malin will come visit someday, and I'm sure that they will share some things. But something that I do want to say is that this little girl lived for 6 months, and she had such a profound impact on so many lives. People around the world were praying for her. And we saw such a change in the church and the body there. We saw the body just come together in a new way to stand together and to fight together. We saw the body just persevere in prayer. We were praying constantly. Basically from February through June, we were meeting every night, praying together, believing in God for a miracle. And though we didn't see the miracle that we were hoping for, we saw the church still come through those things and still worship through suffering and still be able to trust God in the things that he's spoken. And we just saw so much growth and so much strength in the church. And just, again, that little girl's life has touched and will continue to touch so many others. So Sean and Malin didn't feel immediately to just jump back into home group and those things. And Selena and we decided from the very beginning not to be a part of a home group, not because we don't like home groups, because we love home group. But it was Germany, and I don't know if you know this, but in Germany they speak German, and we don't speak German. So we didn't want to go into this, small group and people think, okay, well, we have to translate for them or we have to start speaking in English. We just didn't want to change the dynamic or the feel of home group, so we just decided not to be a part of a home group. But Sean and Malin were not part of a home group either, so
we scooped them up.
We scooped them up and we formed secret home group, we called it.
Which everyone in the church knew about.
Yeah, everybody found out, so it wasn't a secret. But just the 4 of us would get together every week, every Wednesday night, and we would have great times of just laughing and praying and crying and sharing and worshiping, and it was just really significant time. So there's so much that we could say about all of the different people. I would love to put pictures of everybody in the church up there and talk about them, but we don't have time for that. But a couple of things that we do want to just share that we quickly noticed about the church. The first was the community of the church. The church there has such a family feel. Just right from the very moment you walk in, you can see and feel how much people care about one another, how much love there is for one another. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a very simple thing, but something that struck us was how they hug one another. I don't mean they hug each other strangely, but anytime people are together, if it's a Sunday morning or if it's a worship practice or it's prayer or if it's just you're at somebody's house, as soon as somebody walks in, they just hug every single person. So by the time you're done, you've hugged everybody. And it's just fantastic. Just that simple act just does, it just breeds togetherness. It makes you feel as one. It makes you feel the community together. And so I realize, on a Sunday, it might take a really long time for you to hug every single person, but hug more people, okay? So also, I know it's the time of COVID, so maybe you're not hugging, but once that's over.
Ask first.
Yes. Once it's over, hug all kinds of people. Another thing that we noticed just in community is just the hospitality. People, Selena already mentioned how people would welcome us in. And spending time with one another was just so fantastic. I know here in the States, I think it's a bit of a cultural thing, but we can have our set amount of time and then we're done. I definitely can get in this mentality is, okay, well, everything is 2 hours. So not right now, it's only an hour and 15 minutes, but it used to be 2 hours. A Sunday morning meeting, it'd be 2 hours and we were done. Home group is 2 hours and then we're done. And so the first time we got together with somebody, we'd invite somebody over to our apartment and they came over at 7. And so by 9 o'clock, I'm looking at my watch and they're still here. What's going on? It's time to go. But I just grew to love that people weren't so constrained by time. It was more about relationship. It was more about spending time with people than having this set amount of time. And we loved that. Yeah. Another thing that was really great in this crazy time of COVID, when we couldn't meet together on a Sunday morning as the whole church, just so many people were getting together to worship together and to spend time together on a Sunday. Just having great times. You can think, okay, how is this going to go if I invite these people over and we just worship the 6 of us in a room? But just such fantastic times.
Amazing. Yeah.
Sorry, I had to switch the page. So I realize, community in a larger church can feel different, can be different than when it's a much smaller church. When there's about 40 people, it's different when there's 400. And you can't have a really deep relationship with 400 people, but you can with 40, you can with 50. You can choose to be intentional about building with people and not just, our little friend groups, but stepping outside of our comfort zones and really choosing to build with people and really choosing to build with our home groups and really being intentional in building community.
Yeah. The second thing that we really noticed in terms of the culture of the church there was just a culture of serving. And one of the first events that happened after we got there was they had this grill fest, which kind of aptly named, right? Grill. So it was an event for the community, and so grilled food and had games for kids and bouncy houses and live music, and it was great. But honestly, at the end of it, the thing that really blew me away was that every single person from the church that was there stayed and helped clean up until the very last thing was done. Nobody jetted out right away because I have other plans or any of those things, but every person stayed to the end until every dish was put away, every food item was taken care of, every bench was put away, and I was just blown away by it. We both were. And this is something that I continued to see in the life of the church there. Even times when there were specific people assigned to help for things, there were always other people jumping in to help, putting away chairs and tables and bringing dishes into the kitchen. And there was that happening in homes as well, where it just wasn't on the host to take care of everything, but everybody, people were jumping in the kitchen and helping everywhere. It just was such a fabric, woven in the fabric of the life of the church there. I'll also just point out that something that we noticed was obviously you saw there are lots of kids in the church, but every single committed member of the church was serving in some way, in some area in the church. And obviously, there were a lot of people serving in multiple places, but it just was, a phenomenal thing. We just thought there's something here that the church here really gets, and it was just beautiful to witness. And And I'm going to just be really transparent here. But going into Germany, as you can imagine, we had like thoughts in our head of what it would be like, of what we were going to do there and how God was going to use us and why he was calling us there. And there were definitely times where it seemed more clear for Dan than it did for me because of, worship things and leading that. But I still had in my head like, there are certain gifts God's given me, and I'm sure that's why I'm there. But as I got involved and started building relationships with people, God just changed something in my heart and my mind from wanting to bring gifts from God to just serve people and love them and encourage them. And it just started out with little things like holding somebody's baby so they could talk, or helping, we would help clean up in the kitchen at times so people didn't have to switch languages for us. And it would seem like insignificant things, but I just want to say, for a mom that's trying to have a conversation, you taking care of their child and cleaning up for them, it's a big deal for them. And so if any moms want to agree with that, feel free. But I remember really early on, I think it was the first time that John and Kim Lalji came to visit, maybe that fall, that John mentioned to me, I think it would be really helpful if you could help Hannah, by just getting involved and helping with Mattis. And I probably said something like, okay, well, yeah, I can think about that and pray about it or something like that. But in my head, I'm just thinking, this is the furthest thing from my mind of what I had envisioned of moving our life from America to Germany to do, is to help with a baby, because anybody can do that, right?
And she's not really a baby person
I'm
in general.
not, but yes.
But she loves babies.
I do. I love all my friends' babies. And I love these babies here. Yeah. So it's, sorry. Oh, I lost my place again. I was going to leave my finger there, and then I forgot, and I moved. Right. So I was just thinking, like, anybody can do this, and I could help out administratively, or I could get together with ladies, or I could do this or that. And, but eventually, like, Hannah would ask me every once in a while to come help because, in addition to the things, Mattis just isn't a good traveler. He doesn't love the car. He doesn't love being in a stroller. So it's just really hard to run errands with him. And so I would just come over to help her when she needed to run errands sometimes. And eventually, it took me way too long, honestly, but I offered to help like on a regular basis. Like I can come over once a week while Elisha's at school and help. And you can just do whatever you want to do. Don't feel like you have to be productive. Just have some time for you. And she would usually take that time and go grocery shopping or do something really productive. And I think twice she took a nap, and I would have taken a nap every single time if it were me. Without a doubt, I would have napped every time because she did not sleep through the night, ever. And what I'll say, though, about that time is that time, spending time with that little boy and getting to pray with him and work with him and make an effort to get him to smile was the most life-changing part of my time there in terms of God changing my heart about serving, and more than any teaching that I've ever had about serving or anything way that I've served before that required a lot of gift or, in my life, that there was something impacting and life-changing to me about jumping in and just helping somebody that needed help, and serving in that way. And oh, there was a picture. There he is. I just remembered. I miss him. So I'm going to wrap up my part about serving just with two scriptures that came to my mind as I was preparing. In Luke, Jesus says, "The kings of the Gentiles lord it over them, but it's not this way with you. But the one who is the greatest among you must become like the youngest, and the leader like the servant." And he says in Mark 10, "For the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." trying to, for us to try and sum up 2 years into 30 minutes, we have 1 minute left. We might go 2 or 3 more. Felt a little bit to me, at the end of Hebrews 11. So you have this like great, like heroes of faith and telling these stories. And then he says, and time would fail me if I then told you about Gideon and, and Samuel and David. Like David doesn't even get a real mention, in this whole passage. And so there's obviously a lot of major things that we can't, touch on that happen. So we've tried to just emphasize major themes that we felt that came out for us in our time, because time will fail us. If we tell you of Elisha overcoming anxiety through, you're in here now, I'm going to cry, prayer and the word of God, becoming welcomed into a family of refugees, of God moving on people who didn't even understand what we were praying for them, of feeding breakfast to school children, of giving out waffles in a shopping center while preaching the gospel and praying for people. Hope for marriages restored, breakthroughs in worship, breakthroughs in prayer, baptisms in the Holy Spirit, baptisms in water, faith arising because of the prophetic word. And all of this, we've only seen a glimpse of what God's prepared for the church in Germany. But even if from a distance, we will see the church in Germany built into a beautiful home that will provide shelter for many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We went to Germany to give, to serve, to impact lives, and we were so impacted. We were impacted by all of these things that Selena just mentioned. We were impacted by just being a part of things. We were impacted by the things that we saw and that we did, but mostly we were impacted by the relationships that were formed, by growing to deeply love the people. That's what most deeply impacted us. And we've come to the realization that these things that we noticed about the church and serving and in community, these things are actually birthed out of love for one another. Community, true community, comes from a place of deeply loving one another, standing beside each other and serving together and working together. It comes from a place of loving one another. And so, we just want to leave you with these two things. First of all, we just ask that you would pray for the church in Germany. Throughout this whole COVID thing, we just ask that you would pray just for vision for the future and how to move forward, for direction. Yes. We ask that you would pray that elders, that leaders would rise up. We just ask you that would pray for the growth of the church and the Holy Spirit to move. Mm-hmm. And we would also say some of you should go visit. But the second thing is, let's love one another deeply. Let's build together. Let's have that community. Let's move beyond our normal friendship circles, and let's love one another. Let's love each other in our home groups. Let's love that's a different love than the world sees. Yes. John 13:35 says, "By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." So let's love one another. Thanks.